When you dare to share, you break the silence. When you dare to share, you speak your truth. When you dare to share, you use the full strength of your voice. When you dare to share, it brings opportunity to own your story. So tell it, be heard, and at the same time, your sharing is someone else's learning, inspiration, motivation, empowerment, and hope. There's always an element to each of our stories that remains a secret. For some, we feel it's a dirty little secret. Dare to share your untold story exposes these secrets in a welcoming and positive way. I encourage each of you out there to dare yourself to share what is yours to tell. When we dare, it is the courage to do something really important. Let this be a vow to each and every single one of us that we take risk, we brave, confront, and face what is, while inspiring and empowering all communities. So let's break that silence and tap into mental beauty. This is Salima Jadavji, your podcast host, a practicing clinical social worker, and your mental wellness connoisseur. Welcome to the Dare to Share Your Untold Story podcast, episode number 28. She vowed to take care of herself, be her own power, and fight disease. To all my fellow listeners, before we get started, I'm just dropping in a note to give you a heads up that this podcast might be emotionally triggering for you. We do invite guests onto the show who share openly about extremely difficult life moments with exposure and impact of what the struggles have been like. The intensity of each episode could have a variable impact on your emotional and mental well-being based on your own personal story. If at any point the topic becomes uncomfortable or upsetting to you in any way, please do not pressure yourself to listen. Instead, be kind to yourself, do some self-care, and perhaps give another episode a try. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing our truly daring guest, Rish Johnston. Rish is a corporate professional with a diverse background in procurement, data center management, and currently working as a client technology professional for RBC Capital Markets. And like many working mothers, Rish enjoys the balancing act of work, family, raising her 5-year-old son, and spending time with friends and family. What remains consistent in Rish's life are lessons and experiences that have grounded her. As a cancer survivor herself, her commitment to making a difference in the cancer community and helping to empower women of all ages to be an advocate of their own health and to be cognizant of their bodies can make an important and positive impact. She is a proud mama to 3 children, Brittany, Gordy, Aris, and her puppy Hugo. She is a sister to an amazing brother, Rizwan, who has been her rock, and she is grateful to her husband, Michael, who has provided unwavering support throughout her own journey. Hey, Rish, welcome to the Dare to Share Your Untold Story podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Rish, I'm thrilled to have you on the show today. I actually cannot wait to hear about everything that you have to share about your journey. There are so many intricate details I'm eager to learn about. And I'm also very thankful that you bring with you the willingness to share today. And I'm thankful for your support in taking a stance with me to help break barriers of mental stigma.
Thank you so much, Salima. Thank you for having me.
Okay. So, Rish, in case you're still wondering, this podcast is about bringing forward untold stories that people go through, whether it's directly about a mental health struggle or something else. And we know that no matter what the story is really about, there is impact on one's own mental health in some way. And typically it does remain tucked away. So with this platform, I'm hoping it is here to serve as a way to break barriers of mental stigma that have been conditioned in our society. So our presence together, I hope, will be to encourage people to share and tell what people typically have reservations for sharing and really express what they haven't been expressing. And of course, I'm bringing forward a trend. It's called the mental beauty rethink. Rish, what comes to mind when you hear the mental beauty rethink?
I think it's about transparency. It's about bringing forth things that we haven't been able to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it comes in all different shapes and sizes, and it's okay to
Mm-hmm.
have a certain view, a certain way, a certain thought that's not the standard as we've been taught over the years.
Mm-hmm. That's a really nice way of putting it. And it's true. It's like, for me, it's about just expanding the possibility of what it is and accepting and being open and flexible with what mental health is all about, and giving it space to be recognized as just as important as physical health, that one is not more important than the other, that together they integrate and make a person whole. So I like when you said the word transparency. That really struck a chord with me. Yeah.
100%.
Mm-hmm. So, Rish, are you ready for this question party?
I think so. This is
We'll take a nice deep breath and let's get going. So, question one, give us the newspaper headline of how you would title your untold story. How would it read?
I think it would read, "It took everything from me, and I made everything from it. I was meant to be on this earth to help people." It's a bit long.
Well, so this is what I heard you say. It took everything from me, and I made everything from it. I was meant to be on this earth to help people.
Yes.
So tell me more about what this title means to you. I think there's something to unpack there.
Yes. So I think, as I was told growing up, may have been an oopsie, but I think it was a running joke. My brother and I are 7 years apart, so I think the fact that perhaps I was not planned, but I happened, and as I unfold details later, it'll show you that I was people's rock throughout their lives, whether it was my own parents or family, extended family. So there's certain experiences that I went through that have shaped who I am today. So I think it's going to be, I think that is a perfect headline for me.
It really does sound it, for sure. I mean, this headline has only made me more curious to learn about your untold story. So please go ahead, tell us what your untold story is all about.
Wow, that's like a loaded question.
I know, it's a loaded question. All right, start with like the who, what, when, where's or something, let's just at least dip in, right?
So I think it started back for me when I was in high school, and my life kind of changed once I found out my mom was ill. And from there, it just unraveled. Prior to that, actually, I'm skipping years, but prior to that, my dad was ill as well, and then my mom became ill thereafter. So it was just an aha moment, I think, at the time when I first found out back in like 1999, that she was ill with cancer, ovarian cancer specifically. And so it just kind of spiraled from there, from, my dad being sick, my mom being sick, and then going through that whole journey.
Right.
Starting from 1999, I remember my mom coming to my room and just kind of laying down the whole, I have cancer. And it was just such a strong statement and I was so young. I was only maybe 17, 18 at the time. And I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't know, okay, like, what does that mean? Are you going to be okay? Are you going to die? Like, I was so young to even start asking these questions. And I don't think I had a full appreciation of what was being told to me. So,
well, you must have had so many thoughts like roaming around in your mind, going a mile a minute, and so many questions, and wondering if you should say more or say less, or there must have been a lot of confusing things happening inside.
Yeah, I think there was. It was my last year of high school as well. And so I was like, okay, so what's going to happen now? What am I, what am I going to do? What are you going to do? Like, there was just so many things going on in my head that and then, when you're in high school, like, you're kind of like into your own self and your own friends. So
Of
it
course.
was just kind of like, okay, you have cancer. Okay. And then I think it's also that stigma, again, of not telling the children, in the community that I live in the culture,
Hmm.
was only tell when need to be told. And I think it just so happened that I was only told because it was at to them at the moment, which I didn't realize it was really bad.
It was the first time you were hearing about it.
Right, exactly.
But for your mom, she might have already processed it. Your dad may have already processed it. They may have had, their own process, and
Mhm.
they're telling you when it's dire.
Mhm. Mhm. So, yeah, I think things just kind of unraveled from there. She went through a series of surgeries, chemotherapy sessions, and
Hmm.
unfortunately, she lost her battle in 2002.
Hmm.
All while taking care of my dad. And my dad was battling heart disease himself since the early 90s. And,
Hmm.
there was stories I have of my mom doing chemotherapy on one floor and then going to the ICU to see my dad because he had an
Right.
episode. And all while I'm in school, not fully appreciating the struggles that they had within themselves.
Hmm.
Um, but it unfortunately, she lost her battle in 2002, and then, from there, thankfully, I graduated university, and then my dad passed and lost his battle to heart disease in 2004.
Wow.
So
My goodness. Just 2 years apart.
only 2 years apart, and I was 20 when my mom passed, and I was 22 when my dad passed. And I do recall, again, just relating this back to mental stigma, I wouldn't say a lot, a few people within the
Hmm.
community would go up to my brother as an example, and kind of say, like, oh, I think Rish really needs to talk to somebody, or, because from an outsider's point of view, I've literally lost two parents within a span of 2 years.
Right.
And my life was literally school, the hospital, or, you know, going to maybe like,
Oh, yeah. It's like your life was prescribed for you in that period of time. Like, right? Like you had a prescription to follow and you couldn't deviate because everything was a priority.
yes,
Like your schooling was a priority. You had to figure that out. Your mother's a priority. Your father's a priority. Getting to and from the hospital is a priority, right?
I kept myself as a priority because I felt like I needed an escape from all of this
Right.
crazy.
Right. Right. And if you're trying to, yeah, and you're trying to add yourself to the mix, you're at your max.
Yes, yes,
You must have been at your max.
definitely was. I learned at a very early
Hmm.
age to take a day at a time.
Hmm.
Um, I also just did. I honestly just did. Like, I didn't know what was happening from one minute to the next. I was just doing whatever was in front of me. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, my dad, like, I remember on my mom's last week of living, my dad had actually collapsed in the lobby of the hospital. Um,
Oh my
and
goodness.
I was writing a midterm that day, and I come from a midterm to the hospital, and the nurse comes like running to me because I went to go see my mom first, thinking my dad would be there, and
Hmm.
lo and behold, he wasn't. And that's it. It's like that was my problem for the day. It's like I had two parents in the hospital. Where do I go? Do I go see my mom or do I go see my dad? Like, it was,
Right.
yeah, it was a little.
Those must have been really difficult decisions to make in that
Yes,
moment.
yes, there was a lot of fibbing for sure. Because even though, someone is on their last days of life, like, my mom was pretty smart. Like, she didn't have a visual of my dad. She knew something was up, right? So
Right.
having a lot of those uncomfortable moments. hmm So there's a lot of things juggling. And so it's all mental. It's all in how you it's all in how you cope, and I just did.
Right.
Mhm.
So between 2002 and 2004, you were dealing with school and, both of your ailing parents. Were there any other stressors that were going on behind the scenes in addition to these big ones?
I think generally speaking, I was always close to my mom being the girl, of the family. And so I didn't really have a relationship like that with my dad because it always filtered through my mom. And so, I mean, I did, but not like a very, very close relationship, if that makes sense. So, since my mom's passing, I had to form and develop a relationship not only with my father, but on a caregiving basis.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine for an Indian father who has certain values and cores, of the way he sees his family and how he's taken care of, it'll be by his wife.
Mm-hmm.
He would never thought it would have been by his daughter. And so overcoming those challenges, plus he was on a lot of medication, so it really does something to your mind. Um, so the things that he thought I was doing or not doing, or
Mm-hmm.
being his youngest, being a girl, always going in and out of the house, there was a lot
Mm-hmm.
of, I'm going to use the word stuff, quote unquote, that I had to deal with, because it's like I have to form a relationship with my father. I have to be his caregiver, allow him to allow me to help him. And then the mental aspect for him, because he was on like
Mm-hmm.
20 plus drugs a day,
It's a lot of medication.
a lot of medication.
And you had these multi roles to play. You had to play the role of daughter, caregiver to both parents, caregiver to your father, while completing university and learning how to reestablish relationships in a new way. Did you feel like you were on autopilot at all?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great term for it. You just are on autopilot, and you wake up and you think to yourself, okay, today's a new day, and what is going to be my challenge? Okay, today is dealing with my dad's mental perspective, or dealing with the fact that he had a fall, or dealing with the fact that he had a stroke and now he has to be admitted, dealing with the fact that, I don't know, it's him collapsing in the lobby when my mom was alive. Like, it's just one after the other, and just dealing with it in the moment.
To me, what you're sharing and what you've endured, to me, it's unimaginable. And these were such big heaps that you had to keep swallowing every single time. Like you didn't know what to expect from one day to the next.
No, I had no
A lot
clue.
of surprises for
Yeah,
you.
for sure. But honestly, I think these experiences, as large as they were at the time and as crazy as they sound, because it sounds like it's from a movie,
Well, they sound
um,
intense, that's for sure.
they
Yeah.
sound very intense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they were real, and
Yes.
these experiences have definitely shaped who I am today, and the way I think about life, the way I think about disease and health, and
Mm-hmm.
anything that comes to that topic, or just
Right.
in how I conduct myself every day.
Right. So I'm curious, when your mom was ill and she came and she sat you down and she told you what was going on, and as time progressed, I my take is that you were able to learn more about her disease and understand more about what she was going through. Did she ever educate you on her process of how she found out, or what steps you could take to find out for yourself things that you might need to know? Like, did she ever walk you through any of that?
Yes, yes, 100%. She was very good at that. She finally just sat me down one day. I mean, there's no other way to do it, and didn't sugarcoat it, and said, "Look, this is a problem in our family. It's genetic. Your grandmother, as you know, has suffered from breast cancer. Um, whether, she always focused on breast cancer as well because of her own mother. And so it never dawned on her that, ovarian was another component within our genetics that is tied. And so she kind of actually like wrote it down for me, like, okay, this is my cousin that's died of this cancer, and this is this cousin, and this is my grandmother's sister. And so she kind of drew it out for me in a tree.
So your grandmother passed away from cancer before your mom got cancer?
My grandmother passed away 6 months after my mom. And yes, and so it was my mom first in 2002, so March 2002, then my grandmother in August 2002. And
My
I
goodness.
honestly believe in my heart that it was probably a little bit of old age,
Okay.
but also of heartbreak. Like
Right.
my mom was her life. So
Right.
she fought and she battled breast cancer for years, and she was basically on a steady, I wouldn't say remission per se, but she was on a steady path of, normalcy, I'll say.
Right.
So um, in my heart of hearts, I think she passed of heartbreak, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And then my dad was November 2004. So in a span of 2 years, there was a lot.
That's three heavy. Those are three really heavy
Yes.
losses.
Yes.
Three heavy
So
losses.
back to your question.
Yes.
So
Your mom created like a family tree to kind of give you the family lines of the illnesses and what the breakdown is of what's going on. And what else did she share with you?
yeah, so she was like explaining to me that, look, this is like a genetic issue, and not known to me, especially being so young, there was a genetic program that the province of Ontario had started or was starting, or it was pretty new to us. And so I was not too young, but I think there was too many things going on at the time, but she would always say to me, because now I know about my ovarian cancer, I want you to make sure you get tested. And that really resonated, but I didn't do anything about it at the time. Like I had so many moving parts within their own health
Mm-hmm.
crisis. So I
Yes.
just kind of was like, oh,
Right.
yeah, yeah. So I was like, okay, okay. And she's like, because I have the BRCA1 mutation. And
Mm-hmm.
I kind of looked at her like, I don't even know what that means. So
What does that mean? Right.
yeah.
Right.
And she said to me, what that means is that in the maternal line, so from my grandmother's maternal line,
Mm-hmm.
in our DNA, we have a mutation in our genes, which means that we are susceptible to get cancer in our lifetime at some point, and it's on the maternal side.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay. So she goes, it doesn't mean you'll get it. The
Mm-hmm.
chances are just higher based on your genetic
Right.
makeup.
Right.
I said, okay. So the example she gave me was my mom's two first cousins. I think they're both sisters. One has had suffered from cancer. Thankfully, she's still alive with us today. And the other one has the gene mutation, but has never gotten cancer. So it's like fate. It's a toss up, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was basically just saying information's powerful. Our health system, our technology is getting, far more superior as the years go by. Get
Right.
tested.
Yeah. No, that is really powerful
Yeah,
information.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I found out. In terms of her, how she found out, unfortunately, she had gained. She was already a larger lady, but I think she just started getting some pains and some abnormal signs that she just thought, you know what, let me just go get this looked at. Because I'm always focused on the breast because my mom had breasts, not realizing the connection. And unfortunately, generally speaking, ovarian is caught at the late stages. So your chances of survival are very low. So, yeah.
Right. So, at any point, did you end up getting that test?
So, yes, after my dad had passed in 2004, I think in around 2005, I got the test. And I went to the proper facility or the proper hospital, so which is North York General, and I gave them my history. They said, of course, yep, you are one of those people that need to be tested. They tested me, and then they did say, yes, you have the genetic mutation, which is the BRCA1 gene mutation. So I said, okay, what are my chances that I will get the cancer? It doesn't mean I have it. What are the chances? So they pretty much gave me like a very high percentage. It's between, I think they had said between 75 and 80% to get breast and or ovarian. Yeah. Yeah, very heavy stuff. So as part of this screening, I was very young. So 2005, I don't even recall what age I was, but 23. Yeah. So that's very early in the province of Ontario to get screened. So every year they had me do an MRI of my breasts and a mammogram. So they would just keep track of me. And I did that for years. When it comes to the ovarian side of things, unfortunately, there really isn't a conclusive test these days. When it comes to ovarian cancer, there is one test, I believe it's called CA-125, but it's sometimes false positive. So there really isn't anything that I'm aware of, at least, that kind of gives you that, like, oh, there's something wrong.
So there's no conclusive testing
No.
to catch the cancer in time, is what you're saying?
The ovarian.
For ovarian cancer.
Correct. So just roll the dice, really, and hope and pray that it doesn't get you.
So what decisions did you need to make, or did you end up making after learning that information and for going for your yearly tests? At what point did you feel like you needed to do did you need to do something different?
Do something about, yeah, that's a great question. So 2015, I was blessed to get pregnant with Eris, my youngest, and
Yes, your 5-year-old.
My 5-year-old.
Yes.
And at that point, I was still being monitored. They're like, oh, when are you going to have kids? Because, ovarian, you need your ovaries, obviously, to have children. And so
Right.
I think it was 2013 or 14. I'm kind of gray on the exact time, but I found out my first cousin was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Yeah. So we had a little bit of a break, a 10-year break. And she unfortunately passed away before my son was born. She passed away in October 2015. And at the time, she was 37. So for me, that was crushing. I mean, you at 37, battling it for a couple of years, not even, and now you're gone. And she left behind a very young child at the time. So I literally said to myself, I'm going to give birth to Eris, and then I'm going to do the unthinkable, I guess, of taking out my ovaries and doing that oophorectomy, as they call it, a bilateral oophorectomy. So this basically sealed my fate that I can't have any more kids. So that's hard, right?
Yeah, that is tough.
Yeah.
I have like tears welling up as you're telling me this part, because it just, what a journey, and such brave steps that you've had to take. And you just had to see the choices and do what's best, even if it didn't feel so good in the moment. You were very clear about what you had to do. So it must have been so much for you. It must have been so much for you.
I mean, it was either that or risk your life. I mean, based on all the history I just given you,
I mean,
it can happen.
Right. It was the choice that you needed to make that felt that it was the best choice for you at the time. Yeah.
Correct. So it is what it is. I'm blessed with one child, and that's what the universe has given me. And so you embrace it, because
Exactly.
at this point, things happen for a reason. And it just brings me back to, there's a reason why I'm here. So, yeah.
Right. Now, Rish, I understand that you're also a cancer survivor.
Yes.
Are you able to share any part of that story with us today?
Sure. So unfortunately, I would probably say, back when I got my ovaries out, I thought, you know what, I'm doing the right thing. I feel so proud that I'm doing it. There's great testing out there for breast. They have me kind of tracked every year. And I'm like, God, there's just no way. Like, I'm doing everything I possibly in my power. And
you spent a lot of time there.
Unfortunately, in March 2019, my scans had come back and they said, we need you to come back in. And I said, okay, I've been called back before, no problem. Then they called me back in again. And they're like, we think we need to do a biopsy. And I said, okay. And then my fate was revealed that I had breast cancer. Was it a surprise? Of course. No one walks around thinking that I'm going to get cancer. But on the other hand, I wasn't. I was prepared. I was told, look, you may get it. It's in your genetic DNA. But at that point, when I found out, I was literally done. Like, if all the people who were close to me in my life, all the tragedies, all the sacrifices, all of the caregiving, like, I didn't want to stay inside of a hospital anymore. So my journey started in March of 2019. I had to do rounds of chemotherapy. I lost my hair. And as a woman, you can imagine that's tough. It's very tough. Yeah. I had to do a bilateral mastectomy, which means that because the genetics show that it's even though you do the chemo, taking one breast out of where the cancer is not the best outcome for that type of patient. So I had to do a bilateral mastectomy, taking out both my breasts for the safety of my health. Yeah. So that was about a year of all of that, struggles, surgeries, chemo, losing hair, all while my son was 3 at the time. So how are you going to explain to a 3-year-old the C word?
Yes.
Then I've been screened all these years, and finally they were able to get it at a certain point. I wasn't advanced, but I wasn't that early. But the research and all of the development around the breast cancer, the disease, is very advanced. So I was very, very lucky. So I think it's part of education, using the technology that's available to me, educating myself, actioning on that, and keeping up with it every year to have the best possible outcome. So yes, it happened to me, but you know what? I can probably say full-heartedly that I did everything I could.
Yes, you fought disease. You
Yeah.
fought cancer.
Yes, I know. It's
So
crazy.
tell me, does this mean you're cancer free?
Yes, I am
Say it
cancer
loud. I
free.
want to hear it. I want to hear the words.
I'm
Say it
cancer.
loud. I want to hear.
I'm cancer free.
No, say it like you mean it. Like say it
Oh,
really loud.
come on. I'm going to
Come
wake
on,
up the
Rish.
neighbors.
Let's do it.
I am cancer free.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yes.
And are you the first living survivor in your family?
Of this generation, yes. I would probably say yes. My grandmother was a survivor as well, in a way, but she still struggled and still had to do some
Right.
therapy. So yes,
Yes,
I
over the years.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
within my own family, I mean, we have other survivors
Right.
within my mom's side of the family, like cousins and stuff. So, but yes,
Right.
yes, I
Okay.
am.
What a blessed outcome for
Mhm.
everything. I mean, I'm still in awe when I recall everything you've just shared so far about you playing the role of a daughter, learning new ways to interact and build relationships, being a caregiver to both your parents, being in school and going through all that, trying to figure out one day at a time and try to find time for yourself and your own cancer journey and being there for your tender aged son, Aris, at age 3 and everything. I don't know how you did it. And being a wife and a mom, just wow.
Well, some
Yeah.
things have to give, right? Like you can't be the best mom or the best wife
But you were doing the
or
best that you could at the time with
yeah,
what you had, right? And
100%.
life threw you some very bitter circumstances. Like that was a lot of bitter.
Mhm. It was, and I think a lot of people would probably give up or just go into a certain mental state of like where they can't bear it or they can't handle it, and what, and sometimes like with some people that's okay. I just think I knew I was here for a reason, and I just wasn't going to allow any of this to dictate my life. We only have one chance at life, and it was just, I think somehow intuitively I knew like I just didn't want this to define me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, you had such an opportunity, um, such a journey that you've gone through, but it also became an opportunity and you also decided what you were going to take control of in your own hands. And that definitely turned into an outcome of us being able to talk here today, doing exactly what we're doing. Right. So it's really wonderful. And Rish, you know, when people come to see me for therapy, you know, individuals, when they come into the therapy room or virtually at this time during COVID, you know, individuals are typically in one of 3 places, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes people are getting started in their journey and wanting to explore a bit more about getting, you know, figuring out what steps they need to
Mhm.
take and where they need to go. And some people are in the middle, they're in
Yeah.
the thick of it, and they're really needing that help to navigate and understand or cope or just be supported while they're going through those pieces. And some people are looking back where they're just needing a way to get closure, or they're at a place of recalling, making a choice of what they want to recall and what they want to let go of. Some people are moving forward. So what part of the journey would you say that you're in? Would you say that you're getting started, in the middle, or looking back?
Wow, that's a loaded question too. I think a little bit of both at this point in my life. Because you look back and appreciate some of the things that you didn't appreciate while you're going through that journey
Mm-hmm.
of being the caregiver, but then also looking ahead and realizing I can't change the past. I may have been a certain way and cared for my parents a certain way, but now it's time to move forward because no, like dwelling on that is not going to bring them back. So, what did I learn from that and how can I be better moving forward? So, I would like to say probably looking ahead.
I like how you said just now that, you know, it's interesting that you say you keep your learnings so you can keep moving forward, right? Like keep your learnings because you can't change whatever's
Hmm.
happened. You can't bring them back. So what do you want to remember about the process of your healing journey?
Um, I think I just want to remember that. it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to have a bad day. And it's okay if you don't want to just do it for one day. And I'll probably take you back to 2004 in my dad's last days. Um, my brother had come into town, and I basically said to him, I just need a day off. Like, I just don't want to go to the hospital. I just don't want to do anything. And when you're here, I just need you to take care of dad. And so at the time, I think he had decided to do a day visit where he would bring him home from the hospital because at that point he was in palliative state. And I think he just, that whole day, I think was just like an aha moment of, wow, this is like a lot. And it was one day where he was with him without me, and it was a big deal. I so back to your question, I think it's, you're on autopilot, but it's okay to pause for a few minutes for yourself because
Yes. Give yourself permission, right? It's okay to make, you said it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to have a bad day, and it's okay not to do it for a day. Like, you can have a pause. Give
yeah.
yourself that pause,
And
right?
there was a lot of that guilt because I was their only person. I was their person. And if I didn't spend 12 hours a day with them, I wouldn't say I felt guilty. I just felt like this is my time. I don't know how much time I
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, I'm going to miss out,
I'm going to
right?
miss out. It's the
Yeah.
fear of missing out.
Yeah. And those are big shoes to fill, because you were like, as you said, you were their person, their only person. Your brother was not in the same country. He was supporting you guys in a different
Mhm.
way. There was so much that you had.
100%. He was supporting in a different, like I was the primary caregiver. He was a different,
Right.
you know,
You
he
both
helped
were
on
doing your
in a
parts.
different
Yeah.
capacity. My
Right.
parents weren't working. I
Right.
wasn't working. He was the only one that was working. So everyone was contributing in their own way. It's just,
In their own way,
mhm.
the way that they could,
Yeah,
and that's what he could do,
yeah,
and it's a lot. It's a
yeah,
lot.
yeah.
But you had big shoes to fill. He had big shoes to fill. You both had big shoes to fill. But being in a primary
Mhm,
care role and being in it day in and day out is quite intense, and it can really take a toll on mental health. And in fact, I'm curious about how
mhm.
your untold story has affected your mental health. Like, how was your mental health impacted during this time? I know that you had a lot of resilience in there and a lot of drive and inner strength. I can hear it. I could hear it as you shared so much of your story so far.
Mhm.
But what else was going on? How was your mental health affected?
I think I don't have appreciation of what I went through.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the time, like you said, it was such a stigma to talk about mental health, but
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of crying and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
tears and a lot of frustrations because I was dealing with
Mm-hmm.
several things at once, whether it was my dad's
Mm-hmm.
outbursts because of certain, because again, of the medications that he was on, or the fact that I couldn't finish an assignment in school because I just didn't have the time, or the fact that my mom was almost
Mm-hmm.
dying at the time, and and
Mm-hmm.
or I had two parents in the hospital at once, and I didn't know, like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
my brother's with one and I'm with another, and then we cross, like it was just like I didn't, there was just a lot of crying probably and a lot of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
tears, but
Lots of emotions that must have been running through you, right? Like, it,
yeah.
do you, I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of sadness. Do you feel like there was, like, you must have been feel, I mean, I don't want to make assumptions for your emotions, but did you have any feelings of like worry or fear, or just being petrified or overwhelmed? Like, any of those emotions come up for you?
Yeah. I think growing up, I've always used to tell my mom, because this is the naive part of me slash unsecure, like as you're growing up and trying to get to know yourself, I always used to tell her that, like, if anything happened to you and you died, I would die.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as a child, you just kind of say that to your parent because you just don't know where you would be in life.
Mm-hmm.
So when it was happening, I literally was like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Because it's happening.
I knew because it's happening. It's happening. It's real. Like, she's going to pass soon. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't want to die myself, but I'm
Right.
just saying that, like, I didn't know how to move on or what the secret magic formula was. But I think the distraction, fortunately or unfortunately, was my dad, because he needed some attention and help with his health as well. So, yeah, it was a lot going on and a lot to process.
That is certainly a lot that was going on and a lot to process. And I'm sure there was so much more that you endured with all of the pain and all of the suffering and all of the confusing times and being overwhelmed and just all the juggling. It's unimaginable in terms of everything that you've been sharing and everything that you've shared, like from just being an innocent teenager in high school all the way to motherhood and where you are now. It's incredible to hear where you were, the process, the journey, all of the details in between, and where you're at right now. So my question to you now is, what's your key message to the listeners of our show?
I think it's okay to ask for help. I think it's okay to have a bad day. And I think most importantly, because cancer has really been a prominent factor within our family, is even for women who are 20 and up, as much as this is maybe not an issue in your family, but be your own health advocate and make sure you don't compromise your own well-being, because we have so much research and technology out there to help with unlock these answers. And that if you're in a similar boat, in a similar state, I would highly suggest that you take matter in your own hands, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that love you out there. So, you need to do you. You need to take care of yourself, whether it's for your sister, brother, your parents, your kids, your husband, your wife, whoever.
Right. And no one needs to be alone in the process either, right?
No, you don't. Thankfully, through my process, I had a solid foundation of family, friends. Although my immediate family wasn't always local, I had a huge group of friends that were right by my side. So I wouldn't say I was alone, but it's difficult being that primary.
I mean, the role can be lonely, Rish. The role can be lonely.
Yeah.
What you went through was lonely, especially if, people hadn't gone through it. It's hard for people to relate, but people can be supportive. So you can still be lonely and not be alone.
Yeah, that's an excellent way of putting it. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I'm curious, what's your game changer inspiration that's close to you that reflects your untold story? Like, is there like an inspirational quote or a mantra or a book or a place or a person or something, an event? Was it words of someone? Anything that strikes for you?
I think it's something my dad said to me when I think growing up he has probably said this to me, but I think it really hit home when he got, he was in a palliative state and he wasn't able to do much for himself. And, we had certain bonding moments. And he says, there's going to be one day that I won't be here and you'll be on your own, because obviously my mom had passed at the time. And he basically said, you need to move on. You need to move on and you need to take control of your life, and you need to not just sit in a corner and cry. And I think I'm saying this very loosely, right? Like, obviously there's going to be emotion there, but I think what he was trying to say is grieve, it's okay. I know we're not going to be here forever, but you really need, basically make us proud, like don't falter or try not to falter. And if you do, maybe get help or whatever. Like it was just one of those, like, make me proud, and I can't be here to watch you grow, but move forward with your life.
And look at that, you became your own power.
Wasn't easy, but it's one day at a time.
Absolutely. One day at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So what's a cause or organization that has been impactful to you on your journey that you'd like to give a shout out to?
I think the Heart and Stroke Foundation is probably one. I think the Cancer Society, or the at North York General, there's a specialized cancer unit that specializes in this BRCA1 genetic mutation. And so there's a lot there that are probably need some good shout outs because they do amazing work.
Okay, that's awesome. And so how can people connect with you if they'd like to, how are you findable?
I'm on Instagram, so it's at Rishma Johnston is my handle, or even Facebook, Rishma Velji-Johnston.
What about LinkedIn?
Yes, I am on LinkedIn. Thank you. And I'm Rishma Velji-Johnston.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Rishma.
Yes.
You've just dared to share your untold story. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I'm so thankful for your willingness to do this. And let me just say, this is an unforgettable conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You walked me through multi-grief experiences, a cancer journey. We chatted about grief a little bit, all of the education about the science and the testing and how all of this has transformed the life you live today, and sharing these aspects of what you have moved through and overcome. And I'm so grateful that I've had you come on the show to share all of this with this kind of vulnerability. And stories like yours, this gives people something to reflect on. And I know for me personally too. I'm just sitting here holding space for all parts of this journey right now. So thank you so much for sharing. My goodness, I'm just babbling now, but still, like, it's been so, I'm feeling a lot of feelings right now, and I'm feeling a lot of gratitude for how you've shown up today. So thank you for that.
No, thank you. I just think if I even helped one person out there, I think that I've done and accomplished what I needed to accomplish in life. And I think really a key message to take away is everyone has issues.
Exactly.
Everyone has things they're going through, and you don't have to go through it alone. So if there's any way I can pave it forward, this is the start of that journey, is talking to you.
Any listener is going to have a takeaway, that's for sure. I know I speak on behalf of the listeners in advance, but I just know it. So once again, Rish, thank you for being part of Dare to Share Your Untold Story and helping to be a voice in breaking down the barriers of mental stigma.
Thank you, Salima.
To all of our listeners, if you like what you've been hearing on this podcast and you want to be part of breaking down barriers of mental stigma, I invite you to go wherever you are listening to the episode and hit subscribe. Leave us a comment or a review of the episode and maybe how you relate to it. To learn more about what we offer, visit www.daretoheal.co. And if you are feeling ready and brave to share, please submit your story by visiting www.daretoshare.co. Thanks for joining in.